and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be going through some of our van expenses. You're probably wondering, why are these two people who are clearly in a house right now wanting to talk to me about van living expenses? We are actually doing a house sit at the moment and looking after some beautiful puppies. So that's why we're in a house. And just things involved with living in a van and how much it costs realistically for the way that we travel specifically. And we just want to preface this video by saying we've chosen to live in a van. We haven't been forced out of the rental market. We've set ourselves up specifically for this.
We do want to travel, so
yeah, everyone's situation is different. So that's what I was going to say. Lifestyles are going to vary in all different ways, but they'll depend on your setup, your interests, your comforts, and your habits. And by habits, I mean like daily habits and travel habits. So
yeah, we want to travel for a long time and take our time doing it. So we're not just smashing around the country trying to fit as much stuff in as possible in a short amount of time. So
yeah,
it kind of makes it a bit cheaper whenever you're not constantly
in a hurry to get somewhere or like
just racking up huge amounts of kilometers.
Yeah, and like we're not doing a lap as such. And I will also say we don't have any debts. So if you have debts, take that into consideration. I've got a bit of uni debt, but other than that, we are debt free. So we're lucky in that way as well. Things to consider too, we are a couple. So if you're on your own, you will unfortunately incur like a solo tax. So fortunately for us, we pay one registration between the two of us, one set of insurance, one set of fuel.
Yeah.
And if you're a solo person, you'll be paying for all of that.
A lot of the costs are still there for the van, no matter how many people are in it. So
you won't be splitting it with anyone.
Yeah, there's no real way to avoid that, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I will say also this weekly cost that we've put together, that doesn't include things that are completely like not related to van life. Presents for family, for example, I haven't included anything like that in these costs as well, so just take that into consideration too. We don't work while we're traveling. We live and travel in our van, but we don't travel while we're working, and we don't try to find work where we are at the time. We just save a bunch and then just go for it. Yeah. We've lived in a small van and we've also lived in a large van. The costs between the two are pretty much the same if you pull it all down to a weekly basis. So whether you live in a larger van or a smaller van, it's pretty much the same. I think with a larger van, the main thing will be maybe the cost of fuel will be slightly more. I don't know, but our old van was the same, but it was a lot older too.
Yeah, it all evens out. Bigger van means you can save money in other ways.
Exactly.
Right? We can carry a washing machine now, which we couldn't do before. But we've got to
when he says washing machine, it's about this big.
But there's other things that just having the space, even if it's a rainy day, it's okay for us to just sit in the van.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than needing to go to a caravan park or something.
Exactly. What we've done is we've recorded and tracked every spend that we've done in the last 3 months. It hasn't been a budget as such, but we were pretty curious as to how much we were spending as well, just so we could know how much longer we could keep going at the rate that we're at now. So the last 3 months, we've tracked literally everything you could possibly think of. So we'll go through each category and let you know how much we spent in each category and how we were able to keep it down. For groceries, we spend $137.53 a week.
Yeah, so to keep our groceries cheap, we generally just eat the same thing most weeks, and a lot of it is bulk items we can buy and keep in the pantry, and then we just add fresh veggies. So
rice, potatoes.
Yeah,
bread.
We use a lot of the same things for the same meals.
Yeah.
So it's pretty handy. We can just stock up.
Yeah, we have meals, like basic meals that we both really enjoy. So like every night we're not like, oh, this again. And it's not like it's beans on toast, which is actually really expensive. Beans on toast is an expensive meal for us. So we worked out we can get a meal for between $2 and $4. One tin of beans on their own is like nearly $3, I think. So we enjoy every single meal that we have on rotation, and they're also really cheap.
And pretty bulky, so we're going to have two decent portions and usually leftovers for the next day for one or two of us. So yeah, they work out good at $2 to $4 a piece.
Yeah. We also don't buy meat, so that brings our costs down a little bit, but I mean, we buy a lot of fresh stuff, so I don't know if it makes that much difference. We're just replacing the meat with other stuff. It does. Okay.
Yeah,
well, we don't buy meat. I'm vegan and Ryan doesn't care either way, so we just don't have that in the fridge, and it means we don't have to go to the shops as often because we're just buying fruit and veg, really.
Yeah. Cheap snacks.
Yeah, cheap snacks. I'm a really snacky person. I love savoury foods and stuff, and Ryan does too. Probably not as much as me though. But yeah, I've just been buying like popcorn kernels in a bag, and that's like $2, and that'll last us like 3 nights worth of snacking, which is great. So I've separated groceries and takeaway because we don't really get a lot of takeaway. It's still a bit more than I would like, but I mean, it's not a big deal. It works out to be $36 a week, and we probably only do that every 2 to 3 weeks if we're like eating out, or if we're like at a food court, or if we're at a servo.
All depends. Could be coffee, sausage roll, and meal out somewhere.
Yeah.
Just, yeah, it covers a bit of everything.
Yeah. What helps with that as well is that we don't drink, so we're not buying alcohol in with our groceries, and we're not buying it when we're out. I get a drink occasionally. Ryan doesn't drink, but I'll have one just maybe once every 4 to 6 months.
The next cost is fuel, which is diesel, and that's working out at $125 per week. So our van averages between, I would say, 10 and 12 litres per 100 k's, depending on what sort of driving you're doing. We have done 6,320 k's in 3 months. So we try not to drive too much, really anything more than 200 k's in a day, and we want to stop somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you end up skipping a lot of things, and we just don't really like using up a whole day driving. We
used to drive a lot for work, so we get pretty over it.
Yeah. So it actually works out around $25 for 100 kilometers of driving. And that's all driving highway, up and down mountain ranges, dirt roads, just a mix of everything. So it's not too bad.
Yeah, if you're only looking to do a lap, keep that into consideration. So if you're just using a standard like cargo van, it just basic costs on roughly $25 per 100 Ks.
Yeah. Fuel range helps a bit too. So our older van, we could only get about between 400 and 450 per tank, and whenever you're in the outback, a lot of the places either don't have fuel or they have it, but it's very expensive. So having a bigger van with a longer range, this van does about maybe 650, 700 per tank. It means you can skip an expensive fuel stop and wait until you get to the next town and then just fill up there.
Yeah.
So it's another thing to consider.
Accommodation. We generally don't spend much on accommodation at all, and that's by choice, and that's how we set our van up as well. So for accommodation, it's $18.92 per week, extremely low. Paid sites that we go to are mostly national parks. So if we're going to pay for somewhere, it will be a national park 99% of the time. I think the only time we've paid for a site in the last 3 months was at the Kangaroo Sanctuary in Agnes Waters. I'm pretty sure that was the only one.
Yeah.
Apart from donation camps where you give like a gold coin donation or something like that. And we just do free camping and mostly stealthing as well. I mean, if we're in a larger town, then we'll just do stealth parking, stealth camping. That's how our van was set up as well. We've made sure it stayed looking like a cargo van when we were done with it, and because it's so tall you can't really tell that there's fans or solar panels on top, and we're respectful about it too. We're really only parking in the street to sleep.
Yeah, so we'll hang out at a beach or some public area if we need to use the toilets, or we'll make our dinner there, and then when it's time to sleep we'll just go somewhere and park up quietly.
Yeah.
No getting out slamming doors or leaking water out onto the street or anything. So.
And again, obviously with our setup, we're not needing power, so that's obviously a bonus as well.
So we worked out that the laundry price is $6.12 per week. Laundromats, by the time you do a wash using one or two machines and then drying it, it's usually over $20. So we tend to just wait until we've got a big load so we can go and just knock it all out at once.
Until it's time to do the sheets, really.
Yeah. So in our last van, we had a scrubber bag. Sorry, we had a scrubber bag that we could wash small items in, but generally we didn't really use it much. It was only when we were really stuck, like out in the bush for 3 weeks or something.
When we stayed in Kakadu for 9 days, stuff like that.
But this time we'll have like a small portable washing machine, and it can wash singlets and underwear and bikinis and stuff like that. And it's been brilliant for just keeping us going for maybe 2 weeks before we need to wash heavier items.
Yeah, we really only go to a laundromat every 2 weeks now, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
I've lumped the subscriptions and phones all into one because they're on they're paid on a monthly basis anyway. Our only subscription is Netflix. Our total subscriptions and phone costs on a weekly basis comes to $35.76. So both of us are on a Telstra plan. It's a 180 gig each and $72 each. The next step down doesn't give us enough, and this is like way more than what we need, but regardless,
the next
we need
step down,
Telstra.
I think, is 40 gig, so it just wouldn't do.
No. And we need Telstra. We started on Telstra in the NT because I had Optus before that, and I could get signal in maybe like 3 towns. It was pretty useless. So unless you got Starlink or something, Telstra is definitely the way to go if you're traveling around Australia. As for entertainment, we naturally like to do things that are free anyway. So like hikes and beaches and waterfalls and stuff like that. Unless we're staying in a national park, if there's like a day rate or something, we'll pay for that. But entertainment wise, we paid for a trip to Great Keppel and like the ferry over to the Daintree and just little things like that.
Trip too.
Oh, and the Whitsundays as well. Well, we paid, we paid some of that, but I didn't include that in the cost because part of that was a gift.
Yeah.
I only paid put in the excess that we paid for that. So yeah, stuff like that. We generally don't have a lot that we pay for anyway. So our entertainment comes to $21.17 a week, which is pretty low. I mean, again, it'll depend on what kind of things you're into. If you really like going and trying different cafes or different restaurants because you're a foodie, or if you really like going on, I don't know, what do people do?
Going on tours and...
Yeah, if you like going on tours and stuff.
Like, people go on a crocodile tour in a river, we would rather just go and spot them somewhere in the wild.
Yeah.
People go to aquariums and stuff, and we'd rather just go snorkeling. We've already got all the gear for it, so it just makes sense to us to go and do the free option. We just prefer it.
Yeah. So again, that'll just depend on your preferences and your comfortability as well. So we've got a miscellaneous category as well. That comes to $23.21 a week. These are just random spends. Like we'll go to the reject shop and might find a nice snack that we want to try, or we'll buy some baby wipes or incense, or we've got a jet boil, and it's the only gas that we buy for any appliances in the van. And the little jet boil gas canisters cost $4.50 from Kmart, so sometimes we'll stock up on them. I've just put that in the miscellaneous as well because we generally don't buy gas for cooking anymore.
Yeah, we've got a pretty decent battery setup in the van, so we do induction cooking. We've also got a rice cooker that we use for doing rice and pasta and potatoes and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it saves a lot having to buy gas all the time.
Yeah, it saves us about $30 a month, which is what we used to spend. And yeah, you end up wasting half of it anyway because
it gets blown away in the wind. And
the amount of wind we've had in the last 3 months too, like we would have wasted probably twice that amount of money in gas floating into the air. We've got our van running and maintenance costs, so that's not including registration, etc. This is just to keep the van going, pretty much. That cost comes to $50.21 per week. Obviously, you're not going to spend $50 every single week. We spent approximately $650 in the 3 months that I've been tracking, so that'll be things like wheel alignment.
Well, generally I like to do the servicing and stuff myself, so just buy the parts and then fit them myself. But for stuff like an oil change on the road, I'd like to do it myself, but the van holds 11.5 litres of oil, so we don't really have any way to catch all that oil and then dispose of it. So I ended up just paying to get someone to do an oil change on it.
Yeah.
Needed a wheel alignment and some other bits and pieces needed replaced. So
yeah, so you've just got to remember that it does cost a little bit to just keep your van in tip-top shape so that you're not breaking down or...
Basically, if anything starts to go, it needs fixed.
Exactly, straight away. Registration and insurance, I've added that in the total weekly, but you can take this out if you want, if you don't want to include it in your weekly living expenses. So registration and insurance comes to, on a weekly basis, $69.65. So our van is a heavy vehicle. It does cost a little bit more to insure, but we did get it changed over to a motorhome/camper so that we could pay a cheaper registration. It's not particularly the registration itself that is more, but it's the CTP involved, and that's something to do with it being a commercial vehicle on the road.
So the CTP costs are higher for a heavy vehicle. I'd assume that it's because most heavy vehicles are commercial, so they're using them to make money, but they give a bit of leeway for a motorhome.
Yeah.
Just a different use case.
Because it's leisure.
Yeah.
Yeah, recreation rather than commercial.
So the CTP works out to be the same price as a normal car.
Yeah. The cost to register the van would have been about $2,000.
It was just over.
Huh?
It was just over. It was like 2,082 or something.
Okay. So changing our van over to a motorhome has saved us about $800 per year, which is a really big difference for us. It was a pain in the ass to do it, but it was definitely worth it in the end. In that registration and insurance cost as well, we have 2 different types of insurance on there. So we have one with NRMA, which is our full comprehensive. Our full comprehensive insurance comes out monthly, which is about $162 a month. And we also have one with RACQ, and that's our roadside assist, which is like $495 a year. But anyway, I've rounded that down all into a weekly cost, and you can choose to add that to your living expenses or not.
You want the same thing?
No, but I'm just going to say obviously it's changed. So. Sorry, we had a bit of technical difficulty there, / the battery ran out, and then we had to take the dogs for a walk.
Then we charged it a little bit because there was just a bit left to finish, and then ran it again.
Yeah. So the much awaited total weekly spend is $524.71. So it is definitely possible to do it for under $550, and if you don't include registration and insurance in your daily or weekly living costs, then it's doable to do under $500, and that's for a couple.
Yeah, I would say the one thing we haven't been hit with is a big maintenance bill. So say you needed to put like 4 tires or something like that on, obviously that would bump it up a bit. So just think ahead about that sort of stuff, because costs like that are going to come up. So
yeah, in the words of Caleb Hammer, not having an emergency fund is an emergency. Yeah, so if you like this video, please let us know. If you want a video on how to do cheaper recipes, let us know. We'll be releasing a video shortly of the pros and cons of living in a van, and also we'll go through our van build costs as well and break that all down for you.
It's about $500 a day, not a week.
What? Oh, building the van? Yeah. We had a lot of obstacles.
Yeah.
There. But anyway, we'll see you in the next video.